Hey guys, Lytane here, and this is the 50th episode of this show. It does include the top 11s, and it also includes that Goosebumps book club. It's pretty much anything that was released on Wednesday, and this marks 50 of them. So I wanted to do something special. I wanted to do something that was super nostalgic and a blast from the past for me. Something that actually launched my channel. Something that I just have to talk about, and I've written this script actually quite a few times because I wanted to talk about it in different points and I just always rewrite the script. But now I'm finally getting out of the way. I'm going to be talking about a primate that lives on an island in the shape of his own head. That's right, today I'm going to be looking at Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo to see if it's worth it. So this isn't the first time that I have talked about a game made by the now legendary Rare, as not long ago I was talking about Banjo-Kazooie, where I went over a brief history of the company, so go and watch that, and then, find out all about them and then come back here. I'll wait. So now that you've seen that brief history, I want to touch up on a few points. Before the Super Nintendo, Rare had made a few games for Nintendo like Battletoads, and when it came to the next gen of consoles, they were asked by Nintendo to create a new game with one of their characters. Rare chose Donkey Kong, but instead of making a new version of the arcade classic, they went far beyond anyone could have imagined. They turned the original Donkey Kong into Cranky Kong, and then Donkey Kong is either the son, or maybe he's Donkey Kong Jr.'s son? I'm not too sure, and I don't think anyone is in Nintendo, but in 1994, the primate that we know and love was born. They created him in 3D on a computer and turned it into a 2D sprite, which impressed Nintendo so much that they bought 49% of the company and got them to make the game that you see before us. So now we know how it started, let's get into the story of the game. So it was a dark and stormy night on Donkey Kong Island, and Diddy Kong was given the job of guarding the banana hoard from villains. He always gets the crummy jobs. Whilst practicing his moves, he didn't hear the evil Kremlings approaching, and they took him unaware, beating him up and throwing him into a barrel before stealing all of the bananas. Donkey Kong wakes up the next day with a blast in his step, and he checks on his hoard only to find it missing, and he is crushed. With crocodile prints all around the cave, Donkey Kong knows who must be behind it all, the evil King K. Rool. Now Donkey must find his best friend Diddy, collect all the bananas, discover all the secrets, and blast his way through all the barrels in order to save the day, so no monkeying around. All of that story was found in the manual. Do you remember manuals? I do. I still got mine from Donkey Kong Country. As a kid, I was pretty stupid, and I threw away most of the boxes and even most of the manuals for most of the games that I own on Super Nintendo. I was stupid. I just thought of them as a bit of packaging, I guess, so I got rid of them. And this is one of the few that I kept because I loved it so much. Like, in this manual, and you can see it's worn down, like it's pretty crummy, and it's been read a lot. The story was intriguing. It's a lot longer than what I said on the video. There's all different things. It tells you everything that you need to know in terms of the main characters and all of their biographies and their hopes and dreams. And the best part is that throughout the whole thing, Cranky Kong is in this, and he pretty much makes fun of you, like this one here, which is talking about balloons for extra lives. And he says, "I can't believe you're still reading this. What you need is a good thrashing." Like, no other game manual, to my knowledge, up until this point, was doing anything like this. Cranky Kong interrupts most of what is being said and either gives you a good tip or an insult. And most of the time, it's hilarious. They also tell you a little bit about the worlds that you'll be exploring, and like I said, I just absolutely love game manuals, and I wish they were a thing still, but oh well. Shovel Knight had a game manual. That was cool. But yeah, the game manual should come back. I really think they should. Now, the actual game itself doesn't have any cutscenes at the start, so you have no idea why you're doing anything. You just blast into the game, and as soon as you start, you will notice the style of this game. The Super Nintendo was an amazing machine for its time. It was pretty powerful for what it was, but it couldn't do 3D graphics all too well. Now, you might think of other games that have pseudo 3D graphics like Lilac Wars or Star Fox, whatever it's called on the Super Nintendo, and that's because they had a special Super Effects chip built into the cartridge in order to help display those graphics. It wasn't all done on the Super Nintendo. So when you look at this game and it's got those pseudo 3D graphics, no one did this before Donkey Kong. Like this was a new idea, a new thing. Since Donkey Kong, there have been a few other games that have done it. So like of course the Donkey Kong sequels. There's also like Vector Man, I think was on the Sega and it did something similar. Also Killer Instinct has a similar idea to it as well, but that's also made by Rare, so that's also why it did that. So it really helps it stand out amongst everything else that was around this time. The way they did this was they made a 3D render of pretty much everything that you see in this game, from characters, collectibles, even some of the backgrounds, and then as they did the 3D render, then they would do this special thing where they turn that render into a 2D sprite. So it gives that weird look of it almost being 3D, but not quite. And honestly, today, it doesn't look the best. It has aged a little bit, but at the same time, it's still a unique style. So I don't, you don't see any of the new Kickstarter games coming out when they do the pixel graphics. They're always doing 8-bit or 16-bit. Why isn't anybody doing this kind of graphics? That's what I want to see now. So yeah, so it is a little bit ugly at times now, but honestly, if you just get past that, there's so much more to this game. So let's start with our two heroes, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. They play very similar in that pushing the D-pad lets them walk, holding the run button makes them, run, and they can jump and do all that normal stuff that you can do in most video games. One of their special moves is that you can press a button to tag to be the other Kong at any point as long as you have both, which is pretty cool. Pressing the run button actually makes the Kongs roll or cartwheel, which makes them move faster and kill enemies in their path, and then if you hold it down after that, that's when they run. It's a very useful mechanic that you'll be using throughout the entire game. The Kongs handle very well, but they are also unique in their own ways. The star, DK, is a bigger gorilla, and as such, he can kill the army enemy in one hit, where Diddy, being too light, takes 2. Donkey can also jump on a character named Clump to kill him in one hit, where Diddy only bounces off, so he has to kill him with a cartwheel. Donkey Kong also moves a little bit slower and feels a little bit heavier when jumping, but it isn't by much, just enough to make the characters feel a little different. Lastly, DK can slam the ground for hidden goodies, and you will never use this in the game. It's there, but I don't even know why. You don't use it at any point in the game. It's pointless. Now for Diddy. He feels a little bit faster and lighter, and that might be because he has the same jump arc as DK, but being smaller than him makes him feel like he's going that little bit higher and that little bit further, and I honestly prefer playing as him most of the time because of that. The only other thing that makes the Kong special is how they hold barrels. Now DK holds it over his head, letting him throw it further and jump to kill enemies that are above him, whilst Diddy holds it in front of him like a shield so he can run into any enemy, pretty much killing them. I like using Diddy when it comes to barrels because of that defense, but it also helps in finding the bonuses, but I'll talk about those much later. There is an advanced move that you can do as well. If you roll off an edge, you can jump in mid-air, which can let you jump further and reach some of the hard-to-reach places and pick up some of the collectibles in the game. It's really cool, and while not required to beat the game in any way, it is used if you want to get 100%. Personally, I find it easier to do with Diddy, but that's just me. You can do it with both. In this vast world, there is plenty of things to see, do, and collect. Now, the most obvious one that you'll see throughout the entire game are bananas. Bananas are just like the coins or the rings, and you collect 100, you get a life. It's pretty stock standard for a platformer. They also help you get through the levels by showing you where to go, and sometimes there's some in obscure locations, like you'll have a single banana in the middle of the air, which prompts you to jump into it to discover one of the bonuses. So they give you hints as to where some of the bonuses could be, which is pretty cool. If you want an extra life, you'll have to collect a balloon in this game, and it's got Donkey Kong's face, and the red one's worth 1 life, the green is worth 2, and the blue is worth 3 lives. And one interesting thing about these is that as soon as you see them on the screen, you have to be quick to collect them, because they're balloons. They float away like so annoying. You go, because you'll see it and then you'll be like, oh, I want to go back and try and collect it, but now it's floated away. So you have to be quick in order to get it or memorize the stages, which can be a little bit annoying for newcomers, but I like it. It's a neat idea, but I don't know why they did it, but it's neat. So as Donkey Kong loves himself so much, he threw around the letters K, O, and G into every level for you to find, and if you find all 4, you get an extra life. That's all you get. If you miss them, it doesn't matter. It's not worth any completion bonus or anything like like that, so it doesn't even keep track of if you collected them in levels or not, so it's an optional thing to collect. Then there are the barrels, and you'll be seeing a lot of these. There are just a million different types of barrels in this game. You have TNT, which helps explode the tougher bad guys as well as reveal some bonuses. You have normal barrels, which let you kill one bad guy. You have metal barrels, which kill a lot of bad guys in a row. You have the DK barrels, which has your friend inside of it. You also have the continue barrels, so if you die you go back to that point, and then you have other barrels that blast you, so if you jump inside of it you go boom across the screen, and man, it's just barrels galore in this game, and so you got to get used to figuring out where you'll need them. Some of them are just used straight for a puzzle straight away. Some of them require you to hold on to it if you want to find a particular bonus. So most of the time, the barrels as well, you can figure out what they do just by looking at them. TNT, it's gonna explode. But they're very, very intuitive to use, and they're very like frequent in the game, so you'll be seeing them and using them throughout the entire thing. The last main collectible that you'll see in this game are animal statues, but I'm not going to talk about them here, I'm going to talk about them later. It's because I have to talk about the levels and their design right now. From the very start of the game, you are literally exploding onto the scene, and most video games up until this point had you going to the right to find the exit. That's just what platformers did in the day. But already, right behind you to your left is an open cave that you can't ignore, so you just want to go inside. This is one of the only story elements that's in this game, and it shows your empty cave and how sad Donkey Kong truly is. With this idea in your head that you can go into caves and travel to your left, you may then climb up to the treehouse that you exploded out from the start, and you discover another hidden area, but this time it has a life. This is the very start of the game, and it really emphasizes the way that the rest of the game is going to go. Don't expect to be traveling to the right all the time. Explore and you will be rewarded. And lastly, this is very different to other platformers of the time. Continuing through the first level, you will eventually find Diddy Kong, who will be your best friend for the rest of the game. He works as an extra hit for when you encounter an enemy and get hurt. Whoever was in front will run away, with the other having to take over. If you get hit again, you will die. This game teaches you that Diddy will be your best friend and ally, but also an integral part of the game. There will be plenty of times that you're playing through and you will hear the sound of Diddy or Donkey Kong in the barrel just off screen when you have only one, and you are desperate to find it because you need your friend, you need that extra hit, and you just can't live without them. Also littered throughout the first level are extra lives and hidden areas like on top of the trees, which once again promotes exploration. Before too long, you get to a mysterious crate with a rhino inside. This is Rambi, and he is your first animal buddy. These work as a power-up of sorts to Donkey Kong and Diddy, as Rambi can charge into enemies and kill just about everything in his way. Rare then went on to have a wall that you will bump into, revealing another bonus, which reinforces that bonuses are scattered throughout the levels, and now it's up to you to find the rest of them. This first level teaches you about everything you will ever need to know about the game without using any tutorials or text boxes, and honestly, I love that kind of game design so much. For the rest of the game, there are plenty of new challenges and obstacles for you to go through. Like the very second level has you playing through a nighttime stage, which has a little bit less visibility than the first stage. It also introduces swinging ropes for you to practice upon, which will be used again later. The third stage is a cave stage, introducing you to another way to play through the levels. Then the fourth stage is an underwater stage, so now you're swimming, and these stages are crazy because you can't attack, you can't do anything, and now it's teaching you that this is a whole new way to play. The fifth level, Barrel Blast Canyon, is infamous in my household as it is stupidly hard. The curve, the difficulty curve from the first 4 levels, and then you go to the 5th one, it's just boom! Because you are now inside different barrels and you have to shoot across the screen, and you know they move up and down, and then you have to line them up. It's pretty difficult to say the least, but now it's taught you a new mechanic. And then the very last level of the first world is the boss. So as you're playing through, there's countless new things that will get introduced, like Stop and Go Station has lights that if it's green light the enemies move, and if the red light's there they stop. So you have to find these barrels, and it's really intense, especially towards the end of the level. Some of the minecart levels are my personal favorite levels of the game. I think most people love the minecart levels in Donkey Kong because they're one of the most popular. And it's so much fun, and it's a new way to play. Now, a lot of these harder levels as well also have hidden secret warps, which is really interesting. And it promotes more exploration. Like at the start of Stop and Go Station, if you turn to the left and you walk into the entrance, you actually get transported to the last section of the level where you just have to do the last gauntlet of jumps and bad guys. Or if in Barrel Blast Canyon, there's three different warps that you can go through, which my sister and I found, which shoot you across a third of the stage each. 2 of them are a little hard to get into, but if you do manage it, then you skip the entire stage and you don't get any of the bonuses. So if you're going for 100%, you'll have to eventually play through the main game, but it's pretty crazy. Like it's pretty good, and I like that it rewards this kind of exploration. Like they know it's a hard level, and if you explore, you might possibly find a new way to get through the level, making it that little bit easier. So I really like the level design of this game, and as it goes on, it does get harder. Each level pushes a new mechanic or a new gimmick onto you, and then later levels reinforce those by making them harder. So in one level you might have a platform that's on a track that you have to stand upon, and then in the later level now it has fuel which runs out, so you have to constantly be collecting fuel drums or else it's going to stop and you will die. It's so intense, but it's built upon what was before, and it goes on for pretty much the whole game. Pretty much every level that you play through introduces something new. Sounds great, right? But sometimes some of the things that they introduce aren't very good. In the 4th world, Gorilla Glacier, there's a level called Torchlight Trouble, which introduces Squawks, which is another one of your animal buddies, and this is the only level that he is in. He holds a torchlight, and that's great. It's a dark cave, and this level is hard. It's one of the harder levels in the game just because it's hard to see everything. The light just doesn't feel like it's shining in the right spot, and it's really awkward to jump onto platforms. But the worst part is that if you're facing the right and then you turn to face the left, the light goes wham and into your face before it goes to this thing, which blinds you temporarily. The very first time you do it, it's just going to be like, whoa. And if you do it quick enough, it's just a strobe light. And I think this was made before strobes in video games were not allowed, because I don't think they could get away with that now. It's very frustrating because the level is hard to begin with, and then every time you're trying to make a jump and you want to do that precision jumping by pressing like left just so you make the jump, but then you get blinded only to miss your jump because you got blinded. It's frustrating and poor game design. So there are a few levels which aren't the best design, and the gimmicks in them aren't the best, but the vast majority of them are well done. So far we have seen Squawks and Rambi, but there are 3 other animal buddies for you to find on your adventure. On Guard the Swordfish is one of them, and he is used in the water levels. No duh, because he's a fish. Now in the water, Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong have no way to defend themselves. They can swim for sure and have unlimited air, which is great, but they can't jump and they don't have anything to throw to kill the bad guys. This makes those levels extremely difficult and some of the hardest in the game. But if you do manage to find On Guard, then you have a means to defend yourself. He handles well underwater, only requiring you to use the D-pad to move as opposed to pressing jump to swim, and he kills most enemies with his sharp nose, which is great. Next up is Espresso the Ostrich, and she is very different from Rambi and On Guard. Where they are powerhouses killing all in their path, Espresso can't hurt anyone, but can jump the furthest of all the buddies. With her long legs, she can run over enemies, but this is flawed and you'll often get hit, so try and avoid that. It's best to jump over them. She is fast though, which suits her name, and when you jump, you can press the jump button a few times to make her flutter, which makes her jumps even further. Overall, I don't really like her, but she does have her uses. The last buddy is Winky the Frog, and oh man, they really screwed up on this guy. Winky can jump the highest of all the characters and can also jump on bees, which the Kongs can't. That's great. The problem here is not with his abilities, but how he controls. When you go to walk, instead of having a walk animation, he has a bounce animation, like this weird little hop jump, and this could make pinpoint moving a hassle to get right. Also, if you go to walk near an edge and jump, sometimes you go too far due to you not realizing how his walk cycle works, and it's so frustrating. His hit detection is also off, where his legs aren't part of that hit detection, only his tummy is, which also feels off. Now, without playing as him, you may not know what I'm talking about, but I dread any time I have to use him because he is so bad. So now that we've looked at the animals and our 2 stars, there are actually more characters in this game as well. The first is Funky Kong. Now he works as a warp person of sorts. He's like this crazy surfer dude, and he has an airplane barrel because everything's a battle in this game. If you jump into it, you can travel to past worlds that you've already beaten or to your current world that you're trying to do, and you can play through any level again. So it's just a way to get around the map. I don't know why they didn't just let you have a way to get out of the map normally, but it introduces a new character, so whatever. Next up is Diddy Kong. She is the save point mistress of the game. She looks kind of weird too. She's like a pin-up monkey. It's weird. But jumping into her save barrel lets you save the game, and these can be a little annoying to find. There's only one per world, and sometimes they're like really far into the world, so you'll have to get through quite a few levels without getting a game over before you get to save. Then if you beat the boss and you start a new world, you either have to find a funky flight in order to get back and save the game, or you have to find candy. So this can get a little frustrating in some of the later levels because she's just in a bad location. The last main Kong is Cranky, and he is that asshole that I was talking about near the beginning of this episode, and pretty much in the game he acts very similar. He either, if you go and talk to him at his cabin, he'll either give you an insult telling you how you're not good and you're not finding stuff. He'll also give you hints as to where some of the bonuses are in the game, so that's pretty cool. He's not really useful or anything. In fact, aside from the first couple times I played through the game, I don't even talk to him. It's not required, but he is there, and it does flesh out a little bit of the characters. The reason why I talk about all these characters is because they are important. Donkey Kong Country feels like a country, like a world. Now, in most video games like Mario, you pick up a mushroom or you pick up a fire flower as a power-up. But in this game, your power-ups are characters. You find Rambi the Rhino, and he has his own personality. He has his own hopes and dreams and all that kind of stuff. And that makes him feel that much more real. The other Kong in your party is your life bar, and like I said, you will get so used to having them around, and when you are alone, you will feel scared because you know that the next hit will kill you. As opposed to something like Sonic, which has you just collecting rings, and as long as you have at least one, you're good, so the threat isn't there. But in this game, you really do feel like if you don't have Diddy or Donkey Kong along your side, then you're alone in this world, and they run off in fear when they get hurt, which also makes this world feel that much more real. The fact that the weather and the time of day in these levels also change. In the second level, it starts off as a beautiful sunny day, and by the end of it, it gets into a nighttime level. And I like this. You get to see the sun setting, and it's such a cool idea, where most other games will just have the same sprite background for the entire game, for the entire level, sorry, and maybe they'll change if you go into new areas. This one has it transitioning throughout the entire level. In the fourth world, there's a level called Snow Barrel Blast, which is honestly one of the hardest levels of the game. And in this level, it starts off with a beautiful sunny day on top of these mountain peaks. As you go on, the sky darkens, and then as you go on further, you'll notice that there's snow falling in the background. As you continue on, the snow starts falling in the foreground, and then by the end of the level, it is really heavy, obscuring your vision, making the end of the level really difficult. And this transition of weather effects is really cool. The very next level is a cave level, so thematically it feels like there's a story here. Like, there's a giant snowstorm, so you go into a cave to wait it out. The very next level starts off darker, and then it gets lighter, meaning that the snowstorm has finally passed. This little narrative story is amazing. No other video games like Mario, Sonic do these kinds of things. Like, Sonic 3 had some narrative in between the levels, but like, honestly, this game, like, it doesn't tell you anything, it just has those elements, and I really love that. It doesn't throw it in your face, there's no text, dialogues or anything, it just feels like a real world. But this isn't all rainbows and sunshine, that's for sure. This game does come with a few flaws, and I've mentioned some of them already, like Winky or the awkward save point locations, but I want to talk about some more. The first is that throughout the level, you can find golden animal statues, and if you collect 3 of the same kind, you are transported to a bonus level based on that animal. In here, you must collect enough of those little tokens, with each 100 giving you an extra life. There is also a super secret giant one that doubles your current score, so it's best to try and grab that one at the end. Now that seems fun and it gets you some extra life, but it comes with the big downside. It interrupts the level and sends you into the bonus room without you really wanting to go, and when it's done, you have to go and play from either the start of the level or the checkpoint, whichever one you found last, which is ridiculous. Why couldn't it put you back to where it took you from? This means that you have to play through that part of the level again, and if it's near the end when you accidentally picked up the third statue, then it can be very frustrating and hard to get back to that point, and it's simply a broken element, so I just usually avoid them. Also, the bosses are a huge letdown. I will make the argument that Naughty, the very first boss, is okay, because he can be a challenge the very first time you play against him, but he is very easy on every other playthrough, and it is the first world, so I understand him being easy, but he's lame. I don't know, he's just alright. The rest of the bosses are boring and lame, that's for sure, with two of them being reskins of older bosses, but just slightly harder. They don't really test you or your skills and aren't all that hard to beat. In fact, Big Dumb Drum is just that, a big dumb drum. In the fight, he summons enemies for you to kill, and then you dodge him as he tries to squish you a couple times, and then he just kills himself. Not once do you even touch him, and he's the 5th boss in the game, and he's such a pushover and ridiculous bitch. Ugh. Now the exception to this is the final boss, King K. Rool. He is a challenging fight. Where other bosses have been pretty much a pushover up until this point, he is a big step up over them, because he is actually very difficult to defeat. He requires a lot of hits, he requires some mastery of the different patterns that he does, and then that music starts playing and it's really good. I also love the build up for the fight as well, because every time you finish a world, in the distance in the top left corner of the map, you see the boat, King K. Rool's ship, getting closer and closer, foreboding as you're going through the levels, and then the very final level of the game is on that pirate ship versus that boss, and it's so well done, like the lead up and the build up, and even the fact that the manual has him as a black character with a question mark, so you don't know what he's going to look like. It's just, the mystery is so good and the payoff is just as good. And the reason why I'm not showing you this final fight is because I want you to experience it in all of its glory. It is so much fun, and it's so hard, and it feels so rewarding, and there's even a few little twists and turns in the fight, so I don't want to ruin anything. Go play it, go beat the game, so you can experience it for yourself. So like I said, the final boss music is great. So now I want to really talk about the music. This entire soundtrack to this game is phenomenal. It has this great jungle feel to a lot of the songs, and some of my favorites are the very first song that you hear in the first level, Jungle Hijinks, because the build-up is so good, and it just feels like you're getting into it, because as you're learning the game, the song feels like it's progressing with you. Then everybody talks about Aquatic Ambience, which is this great song, which doesn't make much sense in the game because it's such this quiet, somber, like it's got like a sense of melancholy to it, and as you're playing through, these are for the aquatic stages, which are one of the hardest stages of the game because you're stuck in the water and you can't jump and you can't kill enemies, so it's really stressful. And then you have this song which is really peaceful-ish and sad over the top of it, and you're like, wow, how do these two go together? They don't, and that's why it works so well. But my absolute favorite song in this game is Gangplank Galleon, the very final song, which you hear when you fight King K. Rool. I love the pirate element to it when you first start up the level, and you know, it's on a pirate ship, so it makes complete sense. And then it's not long before the main beat kicks in, and it's just really fun, and it's really good. It really gets you into the mood for the final fight. I'm singing it in my head at the moment, and it's already getting me jonesed up to play this game, to be honest, or at least listen to that song. I give full amazing props and credit to the composers. It was David Wise who did the main composing for the game. He did the majority. Also there was Robin Beadmore and Evelyn Fisher. I'm just going to look at my notes. Robin Beanland. There you go. They also helped out with the soundtrack, which is, yeah, pretty cool. The very last thing I want to tackle in this review is something that is both great and really crummy, and those are the bonus areas in the game. You find them in a lot of different ways, with hidden caves that you need a barrel, or even some hidden bonus barrels that you have to jump into in order to get to the bonus stage. Trying to find them is actually a lot of fun most of the time, and you feel great when you do find one. But they aren't very good. Most of them have you playing a very small minigame that isn't very fun, and most of the time it isn't very rewarding either. The time and effort that you have to put into in order to find them all can be exhausting, especially when you don't know if you found them all in a level. Pro tip here though, when you find all the bonuses in a level, the level's name has an exclamation mark next to it to say that you did it. I didn't know that for years until one day I actually noticed it and was like, oh, I wish I would have known that earlier, or they would have said that in the game somewhere, and you know, it would have saved me playing the same levels over and over again because I already had found everything, but you know, there's small things. So what is your reward for finishing these bonus levels? Well, you mostly get bananas, some extra lives, some animal statues that you don't really want, and sometimes a Kong letter, which it just doesn't feel very rewarding to go through. Then if you're a completionist and you want to get that 100%, your only reward is a slightly different ending, with some of the dialogue from Cranky changed saying that you did everything. It's pretty cheap to say the least, and I felt ripped off when I finished it for the first time. The rest of the ending though is pretty good. I really like the credits as they go past because you get to see all of the different kind of bad guys, and there's a little bit of humor as the credits go on, which is pretty cool. I like that. They kept it as a running theme through the other 3 games, so that's pretty cool, but it's just that one line of dialogue change for the 100%, it's not worth to go through and complete it to 100%, sadly. So I'm gonna say that Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo is worth it. It is such a fun game. The levels are so well done, and everything that you'll see and do in the game is just so amazing. Now the graphics may be a little bit dated at this point, but honestly, if you can get past that, the gameplay and everything that you're doing this is amazing. I love the fact that this world feels like a world. The fact that there's so, like, instead of having power-ups, they're friends. The Kongs that you see throughout the game and all that kind of stuff just adds so much variety and so much to this world. It isn't without its faults though. Like I said, the 100% completion bonus is crappy. The golden frickin' animal statues are also really annoying to collect because it boots you out of the levels. But honestly, these flaws are minor in this game. Now, one thing I didn't really talk about is that this is a very hard game. It is definitely the hardest of the trilogy, in my opinion, because so many levels are just have unfair points where if you make a single wrong button press or wrong move, you're dead. There's a lot of pitfalls in these games, especially in the barrel blast sections, and if you make a mistake, you're dead. And if you didn't save, well, then you'll have to do all the levels leading up to that point again. And it's rewarding though when you do get through it. I particularly love this game, and I like games that when they're hard but fair, and Donkey Kong has a good, hard, mostly fair kind of attitude to it, so that's why I can easily recommend it. So tell me what you guys thought about this game. I just want to share a fun little story about my sister and I. We used to play this game so much when we were kids, and we would play sort of 2 players, not the one where you share a controller, but one you're competing. And so she would always have to be player 1, and she would always get to go first, and then she would start dying, and then I would start getting ahead of her. And when we were kids, she was a bit of a jerk because she would, if I went out to get like a drink or go to the bathroom and it was my turn, because she died, she would kill me on purpose just so she can have another turn to get through the level. It was pretty funny. Another great story was in Barrel Blast Canyon, the 5th level of the game. It took us so long to get through that level, you know, because it's very hard. Like I said, the difficulty curve is just a major spike. And when we first found out that we could go and, you know, find those 3 hidden barrels that warp you, well, not warp you, that shoot you across a third of the screen, we were so ecstatic. We loved it, and we were like, yes, we can get through this level finally. And that was such a great, rewarding experience. And then I made my girlfriend play through this game, and she was having fun until she got to the 5th level, and she's not a big platformer gamer, so when she played through this game, she got to that one and she hated it. She wanted to rip this game apart and be like, I never want to play this again, but at the same time, she was like, I have to finish this level. And I didn't tell her about these warps because I wanted, if she found it by herself, then that's great, but I did not tell her. so she did complete the level. It took a lot of lives, I'm not gonna lie, but she did it and she felt great. And then I was like, oh, I just want to show you something in these levels, and I showed her the 3 warp barrels, and she's like so pissed off at me. It's like, why didn't you tell me that sooner? I'm like, because you have to discover it. It's like, but you already knew about it. I'm like, because I discovered it. Most of the secrets and most of these things in this game I had to discover myself, or you know, my sister discovered it and then we told each other, and that's what I really like. This is long before the internet, long before you know, finding out about things. You just look it up online, and so it was just a lot of fun. It was really rewarding. I just wanted to share some of my personal stories about this game, so you should share some of your personal stories in the comments below. Tell me what you think. What is your favorite Donkey Kong game of all of them? Yeah, like Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, 3, 64, what's the other? Tropical Freeze, Returns, those are all the country games. Yeah, just tell me what your favorite Donkey Kong game is below. Give me any stories about when you used to play them, if you played them as kids, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm glad that you probably listened to the end of this big rambling speech. Bye! I feel like a bit of a nerd with this collared shirt, but I wanted to look nice for the video. I just want to read through this manual now. It's this little kind of narrative in this world that really shines through, and I just absolutely love it when my phone they don't feel very rewarding. It doesn't feel very rewarding. So Donkey Kong Country is, in my opinion, worth it. I just burped when I spoke. Rick would be proud.